Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review The Go-Go's. And this is from director Allison Elwood, and it is a documentary on the most famous female group in the history of music. They're the only completely female group to have a #1 record, and they were extremely influential in the 1980s. This group of young women who came onto the scene and just took the music industry by storm. And this documentary focuses on their career, the ups, the downs, the relationships between them, and what brought them together and how they evolved over time. Because this does start with them being a bunch of punk rockers, which I didn't know that. I only really know the Go-Go's from We're the Kids in America and Vacation and all of those super 80s sounding music that was very influential at the time and played everywhere and for decades afterwards. As a kid, I remember watching the Jimmy Neutron, the movie, and Kids in America playing in that. And that was 2001. Fun fact, was one of the original films nominated for Best Animated Feature. But you see that influence and it stretches and it hits a 10-year-old watching Jimmy Neutron and making those connections. And I was born in 1991, didn't touch the 80s, but that influence is still felt today. And they started out as punk rockers, and for me, I love music. I'm not a huge fan of punk rock. It's not really my thing. I really, really love the expert technique of the music, complex things, which is probably why I love Rush so much. And punk rock's very much here's a feeling, let's go at it and just play. And it's just not exactly the most technically masterful form of music. And it was very interesting listening to the Go-Go's playing that kind of music and hearing okay, I could see where the Go-Go's music evolved into what they became famous for. At this point, it's a bunch of young, spunky women. You have Belinda Carlisle and the whole rest of the group. And this documentary, it's interesting because it's tough to make a rock doc, or honestly any kind of documentary, when the people or the person is involved in it. Because are they going to be honest? Is it going to be this nice, washed up, washed and shined up telling of their story? And I'll have to say, I was able to capture and tell the story in a relatively unclean way. You do see there's some backstabbing that went on. There's one particular member who kind of got forced out of the band because they wanted to continue to be a punk rocker and the rest of the group wanted to evolve and move on. And they didn't do it in the nicest way. They showed they went to their managers you have to do it. We can't do this. And that kind of dynamic. And boy, did they talk about drugs. A lot of drugs they talked about in this documentary, and they're very open about it. And that was it was a fresh breath of air in this kind of documentary because it's they didn't shy away from things. It wasn't a glossed over telling of what happened. These were the poster women for clean, just fun music. And then they talked a lot about heroin and cocaine, and they're we needed to get up and ready, so let's go. Get that buzz, get some cocaine, and just bam, you're ready to go. And it was so interesting hearing them talk about that kind of thing. And you hear from all the members of the band, you hear from disgruntled ex-member of the band, and it's they treated her like crap. They didn't do a good thing. And you have the evolution of the band and what happened with the band. I'm not super up to date on my Go-Go's knowledge and the trajectory of their careers. So I know a lot of people feel very strongly about rock docs and stuff like that. It's you didn't focus enough on this era or this era. I felt like watching this with not a whole lot of background on their actual career, that it showed a nice progression of things. It was well paced, it was well put together. Overall, this is a really nice, well put together documentary. There's nothing flashy or particularly interesting from a technical aspect, but this film delivers an interesting story with some great music and a relatively honest approach to what happened along the way. The backstabbing and the drugs and all. So honestly, I really enjoyed this, and if you're a fan of music documentaries, I think The Go-Go's is a good one to go check out. It's on Showtime right now. But those are my thoughts on The Go-Go's. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.